Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report. I'm your host, Steve Lance, and here's a look at what we've been covering for you today. General Mark Milley is under fire for allegedly breaking chain of command and conducting sensitive calls with the Chinese Communist regime's top military official. We have China expert Gordon Chang here to discuss. And as the pandemic continues to plague the country and the U.S. deals with the ongoing crisis in Afghanistan, there is another crisis that has been quietly raging on. Over 1 million people have crossed the southern border illegally in a few short months, and the numbers continue to grow. Virginia gubernatorial candidates reported record fundraising hauls. The race is seen as a possible indicator for the 2022 midterms. At the southern border, border agents arrested more than 200,000 illegal immigrants for a second straight month. That's up more than 4 times from last August. Half of the illegal immigrants caught were single adults, and there were also over 18,000 unaccompanied children. The number of border arrests has gone up for 16 straight months. The total encounters for this fiscal year so far is 1.5 million. Footage taken by the Epoch Times shows over 8,000 illegal immigrants congregating under a bridge in Texas while waiting to turn themselves in to the U.S. Border Patrol. Top Republican on the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Senator Rob Portman, said the new data shows the United States is experiencing the worst unlawful migration crisis in more than 20 years. The crisis on the southern border has been quietly raging. Here to discuss with us is retired sheriff from the border state of Arizona. Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate being with you, and it's a great day for freedom.
Now, Sheriff, the border crisis seems to have taken a back seat in recent days with all of the other crises we've been dealing with, be it Afghanistan or the pandemic. You're down there. What are you seeing and hearing?
Well, it is kind of a little opportune time for commentary on that. The crisis after crisis after crisis, just in 8 or 9 months of this new president. My God, I don't know if we can stand another 8 or 9 months with this guy. Right now, I believe that the president came really, he doubled down on the pandemic and warning the American people that he's out of patience with us regarding vaccinations. And yet, at the border, he doesn't care if illegal aliens come in unvaccinated. Absolutely astonishing, because the border is completely chaotic, and he can't even come out and say, well, illegal aliens, I'm telling Americans they better be vaccinated, so why don't they just provide vaccinations at those points at the border where people are crossing, and then maybe not arrest them but take them to the vaccination center. Don't get me wrong, the president has no authority to do that to them any more than he does to us.
Sheriff, you mentioned the time President Biden has been in office, 8 or 9 months now. Well, the numbers are in, and in those short 8 or 9 months, more than 1.2 million illegals have crossed the southern border. That's enough people to make up the 10th largest city in the United States, with a population larger than Austin, Texas. What is it going to take for the Biden administration to get serious about the southern border?
It would take getting a new president. I don't see the Democrats pulling back on this. I don't see Biden pulling back on this. Well, Biden might, but his handlers will not. The same people that he has told us all are telling him he can't answer questions and turn off the network so he can't field questions are the people who are actually running this country. He's a figurehead, though, and we can still point at him. And you said there's 1.25 million people that have crossed. Now you can take that and quadruple that by the amount of drugs and human trafficking and the horrible drug proliferation that is happening at the border. And this is just compounded by the incompetence of this administration.
And you mentioned that vaccinations for illegals crossing the border or lack thereof Jen Psaki, press secretary for the White House, was recently asked if the administration planned to vaccinate the tens of thousands of illegal border crosses, and she dismissed the idea. Is there anything being done on the federal level on the border when it comes to mitigating the spread of the virus?
Well, if he wants to force us into camps and lockdowns and get us fired from our jobs, as many police officers are now facing, then why isn't he doing it to people who are coming in here for free, get all these freebies, and he's not taking the time to care about all those people infecting us? But yet he wants to protect, he said, he wants to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. Well, he obviously doesn't. That's a lie.
Sheriff Mack, thank you.
Good to see you.
A group of House Republicans have said Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin should open an official investigation into reports that Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, held secret calls with a Chinese general. Congressman Scott Perry and 26 other Republicans said in a letter they're gravely concerned with Milley's ability to exercise his duties and responsibilities as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. According to anonymous sourced reports, Milley told Chinese General Li Zuochang that the United States was not going to attack China, and he suggested that he would tip off China if an attack were to occur. One call took place on October 30th in 2020, 4 days before the presidential election. The second call was on January 8th, 2021. In response to the report, Senator Marco Rubio sent President Joe Biden a letter earlier this week urging him to fire Milley.
Of the highest ranking uniformed officer in the United States, undermining the commander-in-chief by colluding and coordinating with a potential adversary. So this is a constitutional violation. It's a violation of his oath to the Constitution, but it also is treacherous. It puts in danger our national security.
Biden offered his support for Milley.
I have great confidence in General Milley.
Senator Scott Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, described the phone calls as pretty routine for members of the military.
As is pretty routine for members of the military.
Along with over 90 former high-ranking U.S. generals calling for Milley's resignation, you have former Trump acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller saying that he never authorized any such calls. Here to break it all down with us is China expert and author of many great books, including The Coming Collapse of China, Gordon Chang. Gordon, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
Gordon, it has just recently been reported that General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and one of the most powerful military figures in the United States, had secret talks behind former President Trump at the time he was in office with a high-ranking general in Communist China's People's Liberation Army. Tell us, what were these talks about and what does this even mean?
Well, General Milley, according to Bob Woodward's book, was concerned that the Chinese felt that the U.S. was going to attack. And so he wanted to assure his Chinese counterparts that the U.S. had no such intention. Now, there's a lot that's wrong with this story, and what General Milley did is absolutely wrong on all levels.
Now, I have to say, it just seems rather frightening that a four-star general would be speaking in such terms to the Communist Party in any capacity, let alone making them privy to any future strikes. How weak does America look in the CCP's eyes right now, if this is true? And what does the world need to know about the treachery of the CCP and how they'll exploit these types of weaknesses?
Yeah, this is a really important point that you raised, Steve, because Milley's conversations reinforce the notion in Beijing that the U.S. is falling apart, that it's in terminal decline. And that, of course, reinforces the Chinese notion that they can do whatever they want because the U.S. is helpless to oppose it. So I think that Milley made the world far more dangerous than it had to be. And so therefore, for that reason alone, I believe that he should be relieved of command. But of course he should be relieved of command because he was acting on intelligence that he did not share with the President of the United States. And that to me is inconceivable. He's in the chain of command. Milley's in the chain of command. And what he did was he broke that chain of command. And essentially this raises the whole issue of civilian control of the military. And to make matters worse, yesterday, General Milley's spokesman actually talked about how, well, this was part of an interagency review. Well, no, it wasn't. The State Department was not informed. The National Security Advisor was not informed. The president was not informed. That statement from Milley's spokesperson was false. Absolutely 100% false.
Now, President Biden says he still has great confidence in General Milley. Outside of a court-martial, if General Milley has indeed committed a treasonous act and the president doesn't act, who does hold him accountable?
Without the President of the United States doing something, apparently nobody is going to hold him accountable. What has to happen is there's got to be a sea change in the politics of the U.S., but as long as Biden is sitting in the White House, Milley can do whatever he wants, apparently.
Gordon Chang, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Virginia gubernatorial candidates reported record fundraising hauls from July and August. The race is being closely watched as a possible indicator for the 2022 midterms. Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin raised $15.7 million in the past 3 months, while Democratic candidate, former Governor Terry McAuliffe, raised $11.5 million. But McAuliffe has much more cash on hand. The two candidates met Thursday night for the first debate. The second debate is planned for September 28th. Election Day will be on November 2nd, while early in-person voting starts today. For the first time ever, Washington, D.C.'s metro system is launching a huge sales event on their transit passes. This is an effort to bring back riders to the D.C. region. Customers could save up to 50% on selected passes starting September 16th. During the sale, riders may purchase the 1-, 3-, and 7-day passes to use anytime. The monthly passes will be valid for use October 1st through the 31st. The Metro's general manager, Paul Wiedefeld, said, "Bringing back riders and attracting new ones will take bold action in doing things we have never done before. The sale will last for 1 month and will end in October on the 16th. The lawn of the National Mall covered with hundreds of thousands of flags in remembrance of all the American lives lost from the CCP virus, the virus which causes COVID-19. The United States has formed a new security alliance with Great Britain and Australia, being called AUKUS. It might reshape the Indo-Pacific region. A Maryland seafood company owner has pleaded guilty to visa fraud. He's now facing jail time and serious fines. Washington, D.C.'s National Mall is now covered with hundreds of thousands of white flags in remembrance of the lives lost during the pandemic. Today, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser joined others for a ceremony on the National Mall. NTD's Melina Wisecup brings us a look at the field that is being called In America, Remember.
Right between the White House and the National Mall, a large field of white flags. It's a physical manifestation of each and every American who lost their life to the CCP virus. The exhibition unveiled today had 670,032 flags. And every day at noon, more flags will be added, according to the Johns Hopkins death toll.
When numbers get so large, it becomes difficult to really understand them. So I, as a visual artist, wanted to make the number physical.
She's the woman who pieced it all together, and she was joined by a crowd and some performers today for the opening ceremony.
Suzanne, you then called on similarly Americans to care for each other and to show compassion. We heard those words again today from our poet.
I know the Creator has a plan.
Some flags filled with kind words from loved ones in remembrance of those who've passed.
That once people began laying on top of my art their own grief and experiences, it became truly overwhelming.
People are still welcome to dedicate an individual flag to a loved one lost to COVID-19, either in person or online. 43 sections of white flags and 3.8 miles of walking paths with some white benches welcome people for a moment of reflection. A similar exhibit was put together last November, where 200,000 flags were displayed at that time. Nearly 1.5 years later, the project is displayed again, and the woman who made it possible says she hopes that the flags and the way they sound as the wind blows through them will give visitors a moment of pause.
And we've already seen many people today stop and use these flags as a moment to reflect. They'll be here from today until 2 weeks from now until October 3rd. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And an update on the CCP virus throughout the nation. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan ordered flags in the state to be lowered to half staff on Thursday. More than 10,000 people in the state have died from the CCP virus, which causes COVID-19. Meanwhile, Idaho hospitals are overwhelmed with the surge in CCP virus cases. Doctors and nurses are having to contact hospitals across the state to transfer patients. The Idaho Health Department announced Thursday that the entire state is in a hospital resource crisis. Some congressmen, including Virginia Democratic lawmaker Don Baer, are pushing a bill requiring vaccination or testing for Amtrak riders and employees. As vaccine mandates rise, religious exemptions grow. About 2,600 Los Angeles Police Department employees are citing a religious exception to avoid vaccination. In Washington state, thousands of state workers are seeking religious exemptions. The United States, Britain, and Australia are forming a new security alliance being called AUKUS. It will help equip Australia with nuclear-powered submarines. The United States has only shared the nuclear propulsion technology with the UK. Biden said it was about ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific over the long term.
This initiative is about making sure that each of us has a modern capability, the most modern capabilities we need to maneuver and defend against rapidly evolving threats.
In announcing the deal, none of the three leaders mentioned China, but Beijing lashed out at the alliance, accusing the Western countries of interfering with peace in the region. Police are getting ready to prepare for what could be the biggest rally at the Capitol since the January 6th Stop the Steal demonstrations. The rally organizer is trying to help release those arrested on January 6th who are still being held and awaiting trial. Workers began installing a fence around the U.S. Capitol in the middle of the night on Wednesday. This ahead of the protest on Saturday. The Capitol Police Chief says the fence should come down shortly afterwards.
The fence will go up a day or two before, and if everything goes well, it'll come down very soon after.
The Capitol Police are asking the National Guard to help with security if needed. Hundreds are expected at what is being called the Justice for J6 event. It's being organized by Look Ahead America, seeking to release people who were charged in the January 6th Capitol incident. The group is asking rallygoers to respect law enforcement and not to wear or bring any political paraphernalia, including for Trump or Biden. It also says if anyone sees someone causing trouble, to start recording and ask for help. Over 600 people were charged. Many are still in jail pending trial, including people who have been charged with nonviolent crimes. 17 states throughout the country are planning similar rallies. A Maryland seafood company owner has pleaded guilty to visa fraud. He's now facing jail time and serious fines. According to the Department of Justice in Maryland, Captain Phipps Seafood Company and its owner Philip Harrington, who goes by the name Jamie, pled guilty to charges of visa fraud between the years of 2013 and 2018. Harrington hired 89 illegal immigrants engaging in visa fraud. He not only deceived the government, but also paid lower wages to the employees. He faces a maximum sentence of 6 months in jail and a $267,000 fine. His company faces a maximum sentence of 5 years probation and a $500,000 fine. And that's all for the Capitol Report today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe below. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.